Kilayim, Zion. An iris which projects beyond the wall from the corner and stops is given its tillage space, and the rest may be sown. Rabbi Yossi says if there are four iris between, there one may not bring seeds there. If a tendril protruded from the iris is intended as if the plummet was suspended from it, it's forbidden opposite it, and likewise in the case of a single trellis vine. If one stretches a vine shoot from the tree is forbidden beneath it. If we extended it by means of a rope or reed grass, it is permitted under the extension. If he made it so that the news should spread along it, it is forbidden.
Okay. All right, Perk Zion. Now we move
I
on
think
to,
I skipped one. I skipped one.
oh yeah, I think so. Which one did you?
I skipped the if reeds retreat between the iris and he avoids cutting them short, it is permitted opposite them. If he acted thus so that the news should spread along, it is forbidden.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, right. Thank you for catching that. Um, all right, Perk Zion. We're talking now about havracha. Havracha is, I think the best English word I could find for it, maybe you can find another one, is propagation. So basically, rather than it's basically you take a long tendril from the vine and you bury it under the ground so that it will grow its own roots and become an independent plant that you could eventually cut off from the parent plant. Okay, so that's something that unique to plants that you can't do with animals. Um, and now the question is going to become like fundamentally at what point does this become an independent plant? Because and where its relevance to Kilayim is by Kilaya Kerem is what's the definition of a Kerem is when you've got two rows of 3 plus 2.
This is not a branch that you cut off. It's coming from.
So instead of cutting it off and sticking it in a glass of water and waiting till the roots grow,
Right.
um, this is actually taking it from the parent plant while it's still attached to the parent plant and sticking it under the ground. And while it's under the ground, it senses that it's under the ground and it starts to grow roots out of that new part until you can actually cut off the original tendril that was connecting it to the parent.
Right.
Okay, so um, so first of all, Hamavrich es hagefen ba'aretz. So he does this propagation trick and takes a long tendril from the parent plant and buries it under the ground. Im ein afar al gaba shloshet tfachim. I- so if you're burying that thing less than 3 tfachim, then it's not considered buried.
Right.
Okay, which means that let's say it's more than 6 tfachim from the parent plant, so it's not you wouldn't say that it's Kilayim just because it's right next to the plant. Okay, so it's more than 6 tfachim, but nonetheless, the stalk that's buried is less than 3 tfachim deep. So it's considered as if that plant is right there. So you're not allowed to plant anything else on top of it. Again, let's not get into why would you do this. Just to, we're talking technicalities and we want to understand what's the mechanism. So let's say somebody went ahead and asked the Shaila, hey, I'd like to plant some just because it's cool. I want to put the geffen underneath the ground over here, and I want to plant some other seeds on top of it. Okay, well, if it's less than 3 tfachim deep, not allowed. Afilu hivricha b'delas or b'silon. Let's say if you took a dried gourd shell, right? So that would as a separation between.
Uh-huh.
So basically, first goes the geffen, then on top of that you put a dry gourd shell, and then or else they also said with a silon is like with some sort of a tile or a ceramic um, a ceramic half pipe or something that separates between the geffen and the soil above where you're going to plant your seeds. Not allowed because the thing with plants is that they have a way of finding their way through, especially things that are things that like a good. If a little shoot comes through, it'll crack its way through the good, or it'll crack its way through the ferris. Okay. Kati points out that if you were talking about a metal half pipe over there, that would actually be okay because the plant's not going to find its way through the metal. Okay, hivricha besela. Now this is a different story. Now what happens if he did the propagation underneath some rock? Or af al pi she'ein afar al gaba ela shalosh etzbaos. Even though you've only got three finger breadths of sand on top of it. Mutar la vizer aleha. So that is like a case of metal or metal or rock where the it's not possible for the seeds to for the geffen to push shoots up through it. Then yeah, you would actually be allowed to plant another species on top of it. Harkuva shiba geffen. Now that elbow of the vine. Ein modadin la ela mina ikar hasheni. So where do you measure uh, the um, where do you measure you when you want to measure how much tillage space is given to to the vine that's coming out of the ground over there? Um, that where it folds up and kashimalin osa harehi genasis ke'ein akuba. So it looks like there's a knee or a fold or something. So it gets pushed in a certain direction, and to the eye, it looks like it's coming out from there. But where it actually comes out from the ground at a different point. And the Mishnah is telling us, "Ein moridin la ela mina ikar hasheni." You look at the second root where it is actually coming out of the ground, not what's visually apparent, but if you take a look at where it actually comes out of the ground, that's where you measure your six trachim from. Okay. Base. Hamavrich shalosh gefanim. Okay. Now you started out with three vines. Three vines is not a vineyard.
Right.
Okay. V'ikarehem nirim, and you can see where their roots are. Rabbi Eliezer. So now, you've taken these three vines, and now you've done havracha with all three of them. So you push them to another point where now, so that now you have three opposite three. Now that would be a vineyard, right? You've got three
Okay.
opposite three, now it becomes a vineyard. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok omer, im yesh benehem me'arba amos v'ad shmone harei elu mitztarfos. So he says, if there is a gap of between four and 8 amos, that's the halachic gap that you need to have between two rows to make it into a vineyard. And harei mitztarfos, then they join. And if v'im lav, einan mitztarfos. But if not, then they don't make up a vineyard because they're not separate things. They don't make the definition. Gefen she yavsha. What happens if you have a vine that dried up? Asura ve'ena. This is a bit of a context switch over here now. We're talking about if you have a vine that's dried up, it's no longer it's a dead vine. Still not allowed to plant next to it. Okay. Ve'ena mekadeshes. However, b'diavad, if somebody went ahead and planted next to it because they said, "Oh, this vine's dead," and you do it, it's not called kilaya karim. Right? It's in other words, what we're learning from here. As soon as you see Eina Mekadeshes, that means that's not kilaya karim in Torah. It's a derabanan gezerah so that you shouldn't come to plant by a live. Okay. Rabbi Meir Omer af tzemer gefen asur ve'ena mekadesh. He says also cotton. Tzemer gefen is cotton. Is I think that's the translation. Am I right?
Right. Cut. Right.
Tzemer gefen asur ve'ena mekadesh also is asur to plant next to that because it resembles a grapevine, but it doesn't cause damage, and the halacha does not follow him. Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. This is the same Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok as we had in the beginning of the Mishnah. Omer Mishmo, af al gabe hagefen asur ve'ena mekadesh. He says that if if you have a geffen that was propagated in the land, right? So and there wasn't three tfachim above it. It's asur to plant there ve'eno mekadesh, but it does not cause isur. It says Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok if he actually planted on it. But that's not the halacha. Not like Rabbi Meir, not like Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok interprets it in his name.
So in
Okay.
all these cases, it's forbidden, but if you do it, okay, you did it.
Okay, but
That's
that's not the halacha.
right.
We actually hold that the halacha is actually that if you plant it over this propagation, it would be Kilayim, it would be asur, you'd have to burn it.
Okay.
Mm. Mishnah Gimel. Elu osrin velo mekadshin. So the following acts are asur to do, but they do not cause an isur to result. So in other words, what we hear over here is this is an isur drabanan, but the result is still mutar. Okay. Mosar Chorban HaKerem. Okay. Remember, the Chorban HaKerem is when you've got a piece of the middle of the vineyard that was burned out, and we said there that you're only allowed to bring foreign seeds into the I think that's the Machol. Wait, there was the Machol HaKerem and there was the Karachat HaKerem, right? The Chorban HaKerem is that's the part that's burned out in the middle, the Karachat
Okay.
HaKerem. Okay, and we said only allowed if there's 16 amas in there. Okay, now really you don't technically Minatora. The only part that's aser inside there is the 4 amas around the rest of the vineyard because you still got a vineyard there and you still need 4 amas. So if you've got 4 amas and 4 amas on either side, then you still got 8 amas in the middle. That would be so even if you had 10 amas gap inside the
Right.
middle, you'd still have 2 amas in the middle where it would not be Asa Daraisa. So this is what the Mishnah is talking about. It would be Asa to plant there because there's not 16 amas. But if you did plant in that middle piece over there, that's not within 4 amas of the rest of the vineyard,
Right.
it's Asr, no, 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 you shouldn't have done that, but you didn't create any Isser. Okay, and you can pull out those plants and enjoy them. Okay, that's Mosar Chorban HaKerem. Mosar Mechol HaKerem. Same thing with the Mechol HaKerem, which we said is between the kerem and the fence. So we said
Right.
there you need to leave 12 amas. Okay, so you've got 8 amas flexibility over there, and so if there was only 10 amas there, um, then you would still have 6 amas in which you could in which it would not be an Issa D'oraisa. You're not allowed to plant in there if it's only 10 amas. So remember, you need 12.
Right. Okay.
But if somebody went ahead and planted in those 10 amas that are more than 4 amas away from the kerem, no, 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 you shouldn't have done that, but it's okay. Mosar Piske Aris. Um, the remainder of the Piske Aris. So where we said if you got your trellis that got broken down in the middle, and we said that you're allowed to plant in between only if there's 8 and a bit. Right. So 4 amas there, 4 amas there, and the little bit in between is uh, where you'd be allowed to plant. Okay, so Mosa Pisca Aris. So if you didn't if you so let's say it was less than 8 amas. So it turns out that those 4 amas from the edge over there aren't actually midoraisa, and you only have 6 tvachim really midoraisa. So if you plant it in that gap, that's more than 6 tvachim away from each end of the RS, and you weren't allowed to, but it's not Kilayim Kerem. Mosar Apifiaros. Also, on if you have the trellis, which is ready for the vine to trail over, and you're not allowed to plant under the rest of it because it's intended to plant over there. But as long as the vine didn't actually reach there, you didn't create any isser. Aval tachas hagefen, if you go directly under the gefen, avodas hagefen, or if you're within 6 tvachim of the vine, va'arba amos shebakerim, or if you're within 4 amas of a vineyard, hare elu mikadshos. That is where you have real kilaya kerim, and the both the vegetable and the vineyard have to be burned, or at least the 16 amas
That's
radius
right.
around it have got to be burned.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. Phew. A lot of numbers.
okay, Dalet Gimel.
Okay. I'll give you. Rabbi Yehuda says that this is merely a fence of a vineyard. And what is the machal of the vineyard? Between two vineyards. What is a fence? That which is 10 tefachim high, and a ditch, that which is 10 tefachim deep and 4 wide. A partition of reeds, if there is less than 3 handbreadths between one reed and another, through which a kid can enter, it is regarded as a partition. And a breach in a fence up to 10 cubits is regarded as an entrance. If it exceeds this, it is forbidden opposite the breach. If there are many breaches, if that which stands exceeds the breach is permitted, but if the breach exceeds that which stands, it is forbidden opposite the breach. If one plants a row of fine vines, Rabbi Shammai says it is a vineyard, but Vilna says it is not a vineyard unless there are two rows. Therefore, if one sows within 4 cubits of a vineyard, but Shammai says he has read and forbidden one row, Basil says he has read and forbidden two rows. Okay, quite complicated. Okay, all right, payer. Okay, base. We are trusted concerning Lechit, Shikaka, and Peah in their season, and concerning Maisa Ani during the entire year. And the son of a Levite is always trusted, and they are trusted only concerning things that people are accustomed to give them. Okay. They are trusted concerning wheat, but they are not trusted concerning flour or bread. They are trusted concerning the shazara of rice, but they are not trusted concerning it, either raw or cooked. They are trusted concerning beans, but they are not trusted concerning pounded beans, either raw or cooked. And they are trusted concerning oil when they say that it is a maisa ani, but they are not trusted when they say it is a mikuv olives. They are trusted concerning raw greens, but they are not trusted when they are cooked, unless they add a small quantity, for it is a custom of the householder to take out from his stew pot. Okay. Okay. And we are on to Makshir and
Yes.
okay. Hey. In the case of a city in which both Jews and non-Jews reside, and which contains a public bathhouse which operates on the Shabbos, if a majority of the population are non-Jews, one may bathe in the bathhouse immediately after the Shabbos. But if a majority of the population are Jews, one must wait an amount of time sufficient to heat the hot water. If the population is equally divided, one must wait an amount of time sufficient to heat the hot water. Rabbi Yehuda says in the case of a small pool, if it is if an important official is living in the city, one may bathe in it immediately after Shabbos. If one found in that city vegetables being sold, if a majority of the population are non-Jews, one may bury them and buy them immediately. But if a majority of the population are Jews, he must wait an amount of time sufficient so they could come from a nearby place. If the population is equally divided, he must wait an amount of time sufficient so that they could come from a nearby place. And if an important official is living in the city, one may buy the vegetables immediately after Shabbos. If one found in that city an abandoned child, if a majority of the population are non-Jews, the child is considered a non-Jew. But if the majority of the population are Jews, the child is considered a Jew. If the population is equally divided, the child is considered a Jew. Rabbi Yehuda says we rule on this child based on the majority of those who are want to abandon their children. Okay. And we are going on to Caleb. Okay. Yud Zion, Yud Zion. The bath of smiths is tame, but that of a blacksmith is tahor. A sharpening board that is receptacle for holding oil is tame, but a sharpening board that does not have a receptacle is tahor. A ledger that has a receptacle for holding was tame. A ledger which has a receptacle for holding wax is tame, but a ledger that does not have a receptacle is tahor. Regarding a straw mat or a straw tube, Rabbi Kiva rules a tame, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Nori rules a tahor. Rabbi Shimon says the name applies to colocynth. A mat of reeds or on a sedge is tahor, and a reed tube that was cut for the purpose of being used as a receptacle is tahor until it removes all of the pit. Regarding a bin, Beit Shammai says it is measured from its interior, but Behil says it is measured from its exterior. Both agree that the thickness of the legs and the thickness of the rims are not measured. Rabbi Yossi says they agree that the thickness of the legs and the thickness of the rims are measured, but the area between the legs is not measured. When Shimon Zazari says if the legs were one handbreadth high, then the area between them is not measured. But if not, the area between them is measured. Regarding its wheel, when it is removable, it is not considered connected to the bin and is not measured together with the bin. It does not protect against tumah together with the bin when there is an ohel over a corpse, and we may not drag it on Shabbos when there is money inside. But if the wheel was not removable, it is considered connected to the bin. If it's measured considered together with the bin, it protects against tumah together with the bin when there are an ohel over a corpse, and we may drag it on Shabbos even though there is money inside. Regarding its cover, when it is permanently set, it is considered connected to the bin and it is measured together with the bin. But if it is not permanently set, it is not considered connected to the bin and it is not measured together with the bin. How is it measured? By drawing a diagonal line. The Yehuda says that the bin cannot stand by itself, it is tahor. Okay.
Okay.
We are going on to Sanhedrin. Okay, test but base. One who aimed to kill an animal but killed a human, or who killed an animal but killed who aimed to kill a Gentile but killed a Jew, or who aimed to kill a premature baby but killed a viable one, is exempt. If he aimed to strike him on his loins and the force of the blow was not sufficient to kill him at that spot, but he struck his chest where its force was sufficient to kill and he died, he's exempt. If he aimed to strike him on his chest and the blow contained sufficient force to kill at that spot, but it struck his loins where his force was insufficient to kill and he died, he's exempt. If he aimed to strike an adult and the force was not sufficient to kill an adult, but he struck a child whom it was sufficient to kill and he died, he's exempt. If he aimed to strike a child and the force was sufficient to kill a child, but he struck an adult whom it was not sufficient to kill and he died, he's exempt. However, if he aimed to strike him on his loins and the force was sufficient to kill him at that spot, but he struck his chest and he died, he's liable. If he aimed to strike an adult and the force was sufficient to kill an adult, but he struck a child and he died, he's liable. Rabbi Shimon says even if he aimed to kill this one and he killed that one he is exempt. If a murderer identity was lost in a group, they are all exempt. Rabbi Yehuda says we place them in a cell, and anytime people sentenced to execution become confused with one another, they are subject to the most lenient one. If they are sentenced to be stoned if they are sentenced to be stoned, became confused with those who sentenced to be burned. Reb Shimon says they are all executed by stoning, as burning is more severe. But the comments say if they are executed by burning, as stoning is more severe. Said Reb Shimon to them, if burning were not more severe, it would not have been meted out to the daughter of a Kohen who commits adultery. They said to him, if stoning were not more severe, it would not have been meted out to the blasphemer or the idolater. And those who are beheaded become confused with those who will be strangled. And Shimon says they are executed by beheading, but the comments say by strangulation. One who became liable to two forms of execution is subject to the more severe form. If he committed a transgression which was punishable by two forms of execution, he is subject to the more severe one. And Yossi says he is subjected to the one to which he was first adjoined. Okay. All sound terrible. Okay. And we have Sukkah. Sukkah. Okay. Hey, Gil. From the worn-out trousers of the Kohanim and the belts, they would make wicks, and with these they would kindle. And there was not a courtyard in Jerusalem that was not illuminated by the light of the house of the water door. The pious and the men of good needs would dance before them, holding burning torches in their hands, and would recite before them words of song and praise. The Levites would play harps, lyres, cymbals, trumpets, and innumerable musical instruments on the 15 steps leading down from the core of the Israelites to the core of the women, which corresponded to the 15 songs of the ascents in the book of Psalms, on which the Levites would stand with their measure instruments and sing songs. And two Kohanim would stand at the uppermost gate, which leads down from the core of the Israelites to the core of the women, and two trumpets in their hands, and a cock crowed. They blew tekiah, trua, tekiah. When they reached the 10th step, they blew tekiah, trua, tekiah. When they reached the court, they blew tekiah, trua, tekiah. They would continue to blow until they reached the gate leading out eastward. And when they reached the gate leading out eastward, they would all turn their faces to the west end and declare, our fathers who were in this place turned their backs to the temple and their faces to the east, and they would bow eastward to the sun. As for us, our eyes are turned to the Lord. Rabbi Yehuda says they would repeat and say, we are for God and to God our eyes. There was never less than 21 tekiah blasts in the temple, and not more than 48. Each day, 21 blasts in the temple, 3 for the opening of the gate, 9 for the daily morning sacrifices, 9 for the daily afternoon off sacrifice. And during the Musaf sacrificial service, they would add another 9. On the eve of Shabbos, 6 additional would be blown. 3 to signal the people to cease working, and 3 to mark the boundary between the sacred and the profane. On the Friday within the festival, there were 48. 3 for the opening of the gates, 3 for the openmost gate, and 3 for the lower gate, and 3 for filling the water, and 3 on top of the altar. 9 for the daily morning sacrifices, 9 for the daily afternoon sacrifice, 9 for the additional sacrifice, 3 to signal the people to cease working, and 3 to mark the boundary between the sacred and the profane. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Have
great.
a
Thank
lovely day.
you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.